Welcome back to Lucore Automotive Services. Today we're working on street race channels Ford Falcon. This thing was dropped off to us the other day as they're kind of busy in their shop with some of their stuff, and they asked us to help them out. So we're going to throw this thing up in the air and basically tell them it needs a new rear end. But the extent of how much of a new rear end, that's what we're going to figure out. I was actually able to drive this thing in here. It was not a pleasant thing to do. I got it in the shop under its own power and a little push power as well. But hey, it's all good. Let's take this thing up in the air and figure out what it needs, because it's hurt. The write-up is customer reports noise from rear end. Check and advise. Heck, the radiator's in the wrong side of the car. What's up with that? Let's drain this thing and see what kind of chunks come out of it. Isn't that supposed to turn when your wheels are turning? Doesn't sound great. Psychedelic. Not a good sign. Although neither is that. No, drive shaft's not moving. Yeah, that's not good. That's not great. Whew. Oh, it's clean, except for all the metal in it. A whole bunch of little chunks. Hey, what's wrong with those teeth? So I would say it's got a little bit of excessive backlash at this point. That's awesome. There's like 3 teeth left on the pinion. That is epic. That's great. I'd say the spool will be okay. So it's a good ring and pinion for it. Pinion nut came loose. Not all that surprised with that. I don't know if this housing will live or not, but we'll stick a ring and pinion set in it, see what happens. Set that
Somebody had too much cereal for breakfast.
Somebody gave it a little too much scramble button. When you say, I want to see what happens if I give it at all, you find the weakest link. So there's how many teeth are damaged. Yeah, we're going to be basically dismantling the entire back end of this car and going through the rear end, setting up a new ring and pinion, putting it all back together. Got to get it out the door. We're going to start by changing the summer air out for fall air because it's October. Man, those tires are tight. Alright. Let me get to work. You stand. So, this is a pretty cool car. Looks like it's got a Fox body front unibody welded into it. Let's pull our shocks loose. Let's see if we can get this axle down enough to get the tires out of the fender wells. I'm gonna have to squish the tire to get this off of here. Lord. Drive shafts out. This car's like a game of Jenga. Oh, that has no preload on it. Normally I would check the backlash, but it has none. Kind of hard to do that. There's one setup shim in and one standard shim. It kind of has two teeth left. I would say that's probably part of our problem. Loud deflection under load. It's a tooth. Ooh, that's some sharp stuff there. That one stuck right into my finger. So unfortunately my pinion shim is damaged. The least damage area reads about 20 thou. So we'll put 20 thou shim on the new ring and pinion. We'll put it in there and do a quick setup to see if we're close. This one may have to come apart and go back together a few times. But that's what happens sometimes. Ew. Gross. Find a rag I don't care about. That's bottomed. This isn't very exciting. Let's fast forward a little bit. Tone changes when it hits the bottom. We are bottomed out on both new inner bearings. Well, inner races. Those are your inner races. Now I can put my pinion in with my setup bearing on it, so I can see my initial setup, if it's correct or not. I measured 20 thousandths on my pinion shim. There's a shim that goes between the bearing and the pinion. The one I measured is kind of messed up, but I got a 20 thou reading, so we're putting a new 20 thou shim in. We'll set it up, put gear marking compound on it, check our pattern, and see if it looks like it's okay. If it's not okay, then we'll take it apart and do it again. That'll do from our gear marking compound. Ooh, that's a bit excessive. That's a lot of backlash. Like 30 thousandths backlash. Not exactly optimal. So let's fix our backlash, and then we will switch our shims and see if they were installed incorrectly. There's still not enough side bearing fluid on this. We'll address that later. Oh, stupid gravity. We got a little MJ playing in the background. I'm gonna get hit by Facebook or YouTube for having music in the background playing on the radio. So my backlash is tight at 5 thousandths, but I'm happy with everything else, and realistically after I go out and break this ring and pinion in, that 5 thousandths will open up to 8 or 9 thousandths from wearing in, and should be right where we want it to be. So I am going to take this apart with my setup bearings and put all my brand new bearings onto this and put it back together for the last time. I had it apart and back together several times. The original 20 thousandths pinion shim was damaged, and it was way too thin. When I set this up with the original shims that were in here, there was no side bearing preload, and there was not enough pinion shim. So the backlash when I put this back together with good bearings and the original shims was over 40 thousandths backlash, which was massive. The side bearings didn't have enough preload, which could actually allow the spool to shift to kind of, you know, pivot, so to speak, and the pinion was too far away from it, so the gear mesh was incorrect. On top of that, it probably had the pinion nut coming loose because the yoke was actually loose, so there was a lot of stuff going on in this rear end that made it not happy. On top of that, the new ring and pinion, this is solid all the way through, where the other one was cut back here. So this is going to be a heavier duty ring gear because it's physically thicker. You can see this one is recessed out where this one is solid, so there's all that extra meat in there to give it extra strength. So I like my pattern, I'm real happy with it. My backlash is tight, but that will open up as it wears in. We should be good to go. I'm going to take it apart so that I can put it all back together again. So here we go. It is critical that these caps be placed in the same position and the same orientation. You might have seen it when I started. I took a punch and I made 2 marks here, 2 marks here, 1 mark here, and 1 mark on this cap. And that just allows me to, if my trade gets knocked over and hits the ground, then I know which cap goes where. It's just marking for my own personal sanity. I actually have preload now on the side bearings, so that's good. We will actually measure that on our final assembly. Stupid gravity.
Gets you every time.
Every time gravity gets me. Every time. Got a little aggressive there. Alright, new crush sleeve, because that one's garbage. Garbage. Setup bearing. Shims. Let's put our new pinion bearing on. Press that bad boy on. Always lube your seal. I'm gonna go ahead and drive this guy on there with this yoke and the old nut. Go. That's the new crush sleeve. Gravity. I have a hard time with gravity. It always beats me. So this yoke is no good. It's been run loose. It should have an interference fit. Unfortunately, the new yoke doesn't have the correct boss on the back of it for our reluctor wheel, so we're going to have to resolve that. But right now I'm going to put the new wheel, the new yoke on it anyway, because I got to get this together and get it broken in. I'll have to get the impact for that. Nice center pattern. Nice center pattern. Kind of walking in and out a little bit, but we're gonna run it and see how it turns out. Nice center pattern. Nice center pattern. Same there, all the way across. I'm happy with it. Let's roll. Put my cover on, fill it with fluid. We're gonna go do a break-in session with it. Basically just drive it around in circles, get it up to operating temperature, let it cool down entirely, drain the fluid out of it to see if I can get any more metal out of this thing, and put some fresh fluid in it. It really should be driven about 500 miles, multiple heat cycles, but we all know that's not gonna happen because this is a race car. It's gonna go out and get pounded on. That does pose a problem. At least I'm going to get one good heat cycle through it and meshing of the gears before it goes out and gets hammered on. So that'll hopefully give it a little more life. It is definitely set up better than what it was. It had a 20 thousandths pinion shim in it. I'm now at a 34 thousandths pinion shim in it. My pattern looks good. My backlash is tight at 5 thousandths, but after I go out and do my break-in session, that 5 thousandths should wear in and open up to 9 to 10 thousandths probably will be final, so it'll be nice and tight, and it'll be nice and deep in the teeth. The teeth mesh will be extra deep. This ring gear is a full width ring gear, so it's got a bunch of meat on the back side of the ring gear where the old one did not, so that will add rigidity to the differential as well. My side bearing preload is much better than what it was. This center carrier basically fell out of this thing when I took it apart, and the bearings weren't destroyed in it, so it wasn't because the bearings had started to brunel or come apart. It was just because it wasn't set up correctly in the first place. So let's see if we can have this thing survive a few runs. Put it back together.
By the time you watch this, you'll know the car is actually back in service. It did go directly from here. Bill and Billy came and picked it up in the evening on Thursday and had it up the track on Friday. So they did take care of a little bit more of the gentle break-in process for it, and it seems to be okay. Everything's good to go. Now, let's be honest here. That rear end is probably going to go through a really tough life because it is supporting like 1,400 horsepower out of that Falcon, maybe a little more than that. So it's definitely going to get a lot more abuse than a normal rear end would, but as far as setup wise, it's the best we can do for these guys. So the nice thing was the housing was okay and everything else was all right, because there's a lot of custom fabrication work that was done on the back on the axle tube and all the whole assembly back there, that if that tube and the center had been damaged, would really have created some major headaches. Now, as you can see, there's a lot of assembly. There's a lot of disassembly and reassembly. We took that entire rear end apart like 7 times in order to make sure everything was exactly correct, which is really time intensive. Unfortunately, it did take a few more days than we really wanted to get it turned around as fast as we possibly could for those guys, but wonderful folks over there at the SRC Garage and Street Racing Channel. We appreciate them giving us the opportunity to get that Falcon all set back up and ready to rock and roll. So you'll actually probably see it again here very shortly. We spotted a couple of other things we'd really like to address while we were underneath there. So it'll probably come flying by here again in the not too distant future. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. It's a little bit more of a deep dive on some of the stuff that we do here. Not quite all flashy and fun stuff. A lot of it's the dirty, greasy, time-consuming, frustrating stuff, but that's the realities of real actual working shop. So thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for enjoying this video. Hopefully you did. Maybe you learned a few things. If you have any questions or anything, drop them in the comment section below. We try our best to respond back to all our comments. Please do click on that like button. Helps YouTube know that you're actually paying attention. And if you haven't already subscribed, please do so. Click on that little subscribe button. We always appreciate new faces and usernames around here. We're just a small little shop here in Central Ohio trying to do big things. So all the support you guys can give us helps. We'll see you on the next one. Got more crazy stuff ahead. Take care.